Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows, while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Welcome back. I have missed you. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
Y'all have been getting our episodes twice a week still, but it's been a minute since we've recorded.
Yeah.
So we are starting this month off with, I was going to start the episode in a British accent, and then I decided not to.
I know. I'm not really good on the British accents.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is sounding like one or if I think I sound like I'm British, but yeah, I can't do one.
That was cute, though.
Oh, okay.
We are starting off this month with, this month's theme is British shows, and we are starting this month off with a show that we both love very much.
Oh, yeah.
We love the movies. We love the TV show. It is Downton Abbey, or as we like to call it, Downton. So what's been going on?
Well, I was gone for a full week, actually.
Yep.
8 days. I went to Palm Springs, California for my sororities convention. I went a little bit early. With your blessing, to not that I needed your blessing or permission, of course.
Y'all can see the look on my face right now.
I know, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it's
sure.
I know. Anyway, so I went early and hung out with some friends, and we did a lot of touristy stuff. We cooked in the villa, but Palm Springs is a super cute town, but it was hot AF. Someone gave me the metaphor that Louisiana is like opening the dishwasher at the end of the cycle when the steam comes out.
Yep.
And Palm Springs is like opening the oven where it's just heat. And I cannot convey to you how true that felt. Literally walking out the door into the jetway of the plane, the heat just hit you like a brick wall. Like it was just... I felt like it just sucked all of like the liquid out of my body.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but it was like I immediately needed water. It was crazy. Everyone had been saying that it was really hot and it's a different heat and it's a dry heat. I still don't understand what that means. I guess the whole oven thing, but it was palpable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when you were in the car, you had to have water because you could just feel the heat.
Yeah.
And so we went and did a bunch of touristy things, some inside, some outside. But it's definitely a town that I think, like, unless you have a ton of money, it's a town like I'm good. Like I don't need to go back. I think I saw everything that I wanted to see. I ate at a couple of cool places, but otherwise, I thank you, Palm Springs. It was a great trip, but yeah, I won't be back.
It. So that's not your first time to California, but was that your first time in like the California like desert?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to. I mean, almost all. I've been to like essentially all of California in the sense of like the West Coast, like San Francisco, Santa Barbara, LA, San Diego. I've done the Pacific Coast Highway Drive from north all the way down to Tijuana, actually. So I've seen a lot of California, but this was desert. This was truly like, when you hear stories about people that were on hikes and go missing because they didn't have enough water, I can see how immediate like it becomes a dire situation. Because like I said, I got off the plane, I went to get my bags, and there wasn't a lot in the airport. It's a very tiny airport, actually. And I got my rental car, got my bags, And I literally was like, I need to find some place to get like a drink. Like I went to like the first Starbucks I saw out of the airport and went and got like a venti pink drink. Starbucks, sponsor us if you want to.
That'd be so awesome.
And like I sucked it down. It was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just, you just felt it immediately. And it was every time you went outside. I also think I went through like 2 lip balms. I had it always in my purse and ready to go because like your lips were dry. And the other weird thing, I know this sounds like really disgusting, but like my nostrils felt dry.
Oh, wow.
I need to invent, no one steal this from me, like nostril balm or something. I mean, I guess that's Vaseline, but it like my nostrils were dried by like the second day that I was there. It was nuts. It was, people try to prepare you, but you just have to experience it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, it's okay. It just kind of made me think of like on the challenge when they're running a final, I'm always just like, which one set looks the most nightmarish? And the 2 that I always remember were in the desert. I think they were both in the, I don't know specifically what desert it is, but it's in Namibia in South Africa. But it's like I just remember in War of the Worlds, one of the seasons of the challenge, is like one of my favorite seasons. They had like 3 people get disqualified during the final that had to medically DQ themselves because they got dehydrated. Yeah. And one of the girls was like, I'd never ran a final before, and it was like her first challenge. I think it was Georgia, and she drank an energy drink and like did not hydrate herself at all, but she drank an energy drink and like chugged it. And then Wes, one of the veterans of the challenge, was just like, what are you doing? Drink water. And then like an hour into it, she had to DQ because she was just so like dehydrated immediately.
Yeah, because I don't know a lot about energy drinks, but I don't think they're not hydrating. Yeah, they don't hydrate you.
She was doing it like for energy.
For liquid or something.
But yeah, I hope you brought I hope next time you remember to bring, if you ever go back to the desert, to bring the little hydration packets that we have, liquid IVs. Yeah.
I was having those
because I need those for work. I need those for work, and that's just being in a hot kitchen. I can't even imagine being in the desert.
I had them. I would have them when we would go to business meetings because even in the hotel,
it was hot.
It was hot. I mean, their AC must run 24/7 for people. Yeah. So, I don't know how people were hanging out at the pool. Like, I get hot hanging out in our pool in our, like at 5:00.
Yeah.
There were people at the pool during our free time. I don't know how they were handling it. Yeah. Like, literally. That's crazy. I don't know how they managed it. I guess they just were, committed to doing it.
All right, so like I said, we are doing Downton Abbey today, and the 3rd movie is coming out soon. I know. So that was kind of a convenient timing for it.
We didn't even really plan that one either.
No, it's really weird how another derail, which is what we love to do most, is how we plan certain shows that just seem to fall serendipitously with like a current show or movie that's coming out or like a future one. Like, it's always very convenient. We never plan it, but here we are. So we got a lot to talk about because we both love this show, and I got some good questions for us. So why don't you just go ahead? We don't have to do movie information anymore. I had to remind myself because there's a Downton Abbey movie. I had to be like, I almost started typing about the movie. I'm like, I don't have to do that because the theme's over.
That was June.
But it was like I was typing this out while I was editing Parenthood, so it was just on my brain.
The movie came after the TV show.
So yeah,
June was movie, then TV show.
Yes. All right. So go ahead and give us some movie and series information. Episode and series information. See, it's still on my brain.
Still in our head.
Yeah.
All right. Downton Abbey, episode 1. Downton Abbey was a British drama that aired on ITV in the UK and PBS in the US from September 26, 2010 to December 25th, 2015 for 6 seasons and a total of 52 episodes, which includes 5 Christmas specials. The series was created by Julian Fellowes, who is also known for writing the Academy Award-winning film Gosford Park. I love that movie.
Yes, me too.
And for creating another period drama, The Gilded Age. We love that TV show.
Oh, yeah, and also currently just the new season just started.
That season just launched.
Another convenient timing.
The pilot was also written by Fellows and was directed by Brian Percival. Downton Abbey takes place in the early 20th century at the fictional Yorkshire country estate of Downton Abbey, a home owned by the aristocratic Crawley family. The series focuses on the family, the servants, and the effects of the great events of the time, and that what they have on their lives, and the British social hierarchy. Each season revolves around major world events. Season 1 opens with the aftermath of the sinking of the Titanic and later the outbreak of World War I. Season 2 takes place during mid-World War I and the Spanish flu epidemic. Season 3 takes place during the Irish War of Independence. Season 4 takes place during the Teapot Dome scandal. Season 5 takes place during the beginning of Hitler's reign as the head of the Nazi Party. And finally, Season 6 takes place during the decline of the British aristocracy. The main cast of Season 1 consists of the upstairs, also known as the privileged Crawley family, and the downstairs, the servants of the home. Julian Fellows loves that that aesthetic of his shows. The upstairs cast includes Hugh Bonneville as Robert Crawley, Earl of Grantham, Elizabeth McGovern as Cora Crawley, the Countess of Grantham, Michelle Dockery as their eldest daughter, Lady Mary, Laura Carmichael as their middle child, Lady Edith, Jessica Brown Finley as their youngest daughter, Lady Sybil, Dame Penelope Wilton as Isabel Crawley, Dan Stevens as Matthew Crawley, and Dame Maggie Smith as Violet Crawley, Robert's mother and Dowager Countess of Grantham.
I felt I had to give Penelope Wilton and Maggie Smith their official title as a dame.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta.
The downstairs cast includes Jim Carter as Mr. Carson, the house butler.
Love that guy.
Phyllis Logan as Mrs. Hughes, the head housekeeper. Brendan Coyle as Mr. Bates, Lord Grantham's valet. That's what they call him.
Oh, I know. It's just you being cute.
Siobhan Finneran as Miss O'Brien, Lady Grantham's maid. Joanna Froggatt as Miss Anna, the head housemaid.
You love Anna.
I love Anna. Robert James Collier as Mr. Barrow, the first footman. Thomas Howes as Mr. Mason, second footman. Rose Leslie as Miss Gwen, a housemaid. Leslie McNichol as Mrs. Patmore, the house cook. And Sophie McShara as Daisy, one of the kitchen maids. Downton Abbey was an instant hit in both the UK and the US, being the most watched TV show on ITV and PBS. It was recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most critically acclaimed English-speaking series of 2011. It has been nominated for a total of 69 Primetime Emmys, winning 15 of them. The series has spawned 3 theatrical films, the third being released later this year. You can currently watch Downton Abbey on Prime Video and Peacock, and you can currently find the first film on Netflix, and the second one is on Peacock.
Yeah, it's really annoying how it just kept autocorrecting to downtown, and I corrected a couple of them, and then I missed a few of them.
Downton.
Yeah, that's what I type really fast, and sometimes I don't look at the screen. I just kind of type as I'm going, and yeah, I miss the autocorrect sometimes. All right, so you watched this show when it originally aired.
I had started watching it back in 2010, and then I think I must have fallen off of it because I remember watching it when we started it again. I think we started watching it again during the pandemic.
We did, during our upstairs when we were watching stuff in the movie room.
And so I think I watched the first episode with you, and I'm like, okay, this is coming back to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I had never watched the show before, and I guess I've been wanting to watch it. I don't remember what, sparked it. Maybe it gotten added to something, and you saw maybe it got added to Prime, because it's always been on Prime, from my memory.
Yeah.
Prime Video, and I don't remember exactly what, enticed you to want to rewatch it. Maybe it was just something you always wanted to rewatch. So I am not a huge fan of period pieces. I'm not a huge fan of I don't know. I just, maybe it's just my upbringing with watching those very, like, I will just kind of go ahead and say boring, like, period dramas that I was kind of like forced to watch because my mom or my sister watched it. Like watching, when you're 10 years old, 10 years old, you're not really, begging to watch The Age of Innocence. You're not really begging to watch. I know you love that movie, but I was, as a 9 or 10-year-old boy.
My eyes just bugged out of my head.
As a 9 or 10-year-old boy, I just wasn't interested in watching those type movies. I really didn't get into period pieces in general until I was like a little bit older, a little bit more mature to like really grasp what was going on. I remember watching Dangerous Liaisons in high school, and because Cruel Intentions had come out, and they're like, this is based on something, and on an older classic literature. We talked about that on 10 Things I Hate About You. But I was just kind of like, okay, of course, if either one of us wants to watch something, we're both just game, because we're both really just kind of down to watch whatever. And I'm pretty sure if I wasn't into it, you would have just been like, okay, I'll just watch this independently, which we also do sometimes. And I remember watching the first episode and watching the pilot, and even though it's different, how British shows are formatted differently, it's not necessarily a pilot. They just kind of film all the episodes at once. But I remember watching the first episode and just being like, okay, this is pretty good. I'll keep watching it with you. And I think maybe by like episode 3 or 4, I remember texting you being like, I was at work and being like, can we watch a couple episodes tonight? Like I kind of like, it didn't take very long for me to get invested in the show. I love the idea of rich people didn't work and poor people had jobs, like that whole concept.
I think that was also very intriguing to me. Yeah. Like I kept going, where does their money come from?
Right. I mean, like that's being an aristocrat. Like that's just your money just exists, and like eventually, like we see towards the end of the series, is that that invisible money runs out, and like I've always just kind of been fascinated with that kind of era of old money, and kind of seeing people, like we just said, like kind of start to have to shut down their houses or sell their art or like whatever, because they kind of need money now. And I think maybe I'd have to like really do research and like figure it out, because like I'm kind of fascinated by it. But yeah, it's just the idea of like having a job means you're poor, like just that. And now it's obviously our culture is completely different now. If you don't have a job, you don't have any money, you're most likely going to end up not having a home or getting your car taken away or whatever. But yeah, it's just I just find it fascinating. So what was it about the show that intrigued you kind of to want to watch it in the first place?
Well, first off, I just have like a fascination with British aristocracy. I mean, I think that comes just from growing up, obviously at a very young age, learning about Princess Diana and Prince Charles and all of that. And then I think I've mentioned when we did The Crown about the project I did in either 7th or 8th grade about the United Kingdom and London. And so I think I learned about, the monarchy and aristocracy at a pretty young age. About this show specifically, why I loved it, I think, and I got back into it so quickly, was that it opened with the Titanic, which obviously
I'd forgotten about that.
I love that. I love, first off, the movie, but it also takes place in April near my birthday. So I've always had an affinity for that, tragedy. Not that you should have an affinity for tragedy. That doesn't make sense. But,
I know what you mean.
I thought it just was it was nice. But again, I didn't realize at the time that it was Julian Fellows, and I loved Gosford Park. I loved the whole upstairs, downstairs, and that you saw the different lives like happen together, like that they were intertwined, where, you were just talking about class systems. Well, I would say we are very middle class, and I don't regularly hang out with like uber rich people. We just, we are not going to have a social life where you and I are going to be rubbing elbows with the uber rich.
We're not going to the Met.
Right, exactly. But I liked seeing them interact on this show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just interesting because I felt like both the upstairs and the downstairs had stories to tell.
Right.
Like we all do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people forget that. And so I feel like sometimes you don't think that the class system should interact, or people think that, you know, someone's not good enough, or you think you're not good enough, or, you know, whatever it might be. But we're all just people at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I always kind of like the idea of it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're somewhere in the middle. It's kind of like we all have very similar problems.
Yeah.
And they might just be in a different mask. It might just be a different, you know, specific situation, but across, like, kind of generally, we all kind of have the same problems, and I've always been intrigued by that. I also was very interested in the kind of politics of the downstairs, kind of like the hierarchy,
right? Even within them,
and kind of that whole, like, the kind of the inner struggles of that hierarchy. And, you know, like, you know, Barrow wants to be the valet, and he's the footman, but, like, you know, he kind of gets kind of an outside hire, if you will, kind of like a modern phrase is an outside hire of Bates. Kind of came in and swooped and took, you know, the job that he felt he deserved, but, you know, like, that's not for him to decide. And I think that was something that he struggled with a lot in the beginning of the show, especially the first season.
Oh my God, don't get me started on Barrow.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, I was so interested in the downstairs and the upstairs. So what do you think it is about period pieces in general that interests people so much?
Well, I feel like, and I say this a lot, like, just generally about things. I mean, I can even just go as far as saying, like, about my trip to Palm Springs, as, like, we were driving around, I just kept thinking, because Palm Springs, and I know I'm kind of veering off of Downton Abbey.
No, you're good.
But Palm Springs has a big Native American population. They have the casino. They have a, you know, reservation. And all I kept thinking was, how did people live here without air conditioning?
Oh, yeah.
Or ice. Or things like, I was just like, I mean, I was dying of thirst within the first 30 minutes that I landed, drove to a Starbucks, and got me a pink drink. Starbucks, please sponsor us. I'm like,
maybe you say it enough times.
Exactly. It'll hit their algorithm.
Right.
How did they survive? So that, to me, has just always been intriguing.
Yeah.
Particularly young as a kid, learning the history of New Orleans and thinking about everything that they survived, and just learning, like, history has always just been intriguing. Like, how did they manage without telephones? They had to wait days or weeks to find information out, and now compared to, we have information given to us and shared with us in seconds of it happening.
Yeah.
Like the Titanic, I mean, that opens up the episode and it comes in a newspaper, and they're ironing the newspaper so that it's nice and crisp.
Oh, yeah.
You know, now, I mean, how many newspapers are even out there anymore?
Right.
They're all online, you know, so it's just amazing to me to see the evolution of things over time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that is why I love period pieces. I love seeing how people lived at different times. And like you said, was, you know, between the upstairs and the downstairs, the struggles are the same. I think our struggles are still the same.
Yeah.
Even though we have all this modern technology and information and accessibility to luxury things, there's still always going to be something newer. You know, in 50 years, they're going to look back at 2020, 2025 and go, oh my God, how did they survive without this?
Right.
You know, so it's just amazing to me, like, how time changes things, and just how our survival and the things that we consider to be our living abilities, or whatever you want to call it, our luxuries, great, but in 50 years, 100 years, they're gonna think like we suffered.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love at the beginning of the episode where they're doing the telegram, and like they're basically like translating the telegram with Morse code, and I'm just like, and the time that it took, and how like, you know, if you had an urgent message, you had to get one of the footmen to, you know, hop on a carriage and hand deliver it to someone. That was same day delivery. You know, that was the same concept of like, you know, what's it called? Expediting your delivery. And it's just so interesting. And yeah, like thinking about, and this was kind of the beginning, like the beginning of not modern technology, but kind of the beginning of modern technology, because like when you think of a telegram, that's like a manual text message. You know, it's just like that's literally what a telegram is. And
I still have actually the telegram that my mother sent to my dad when I was born.
Oh wow!
And it's in the closet in one of my like bags of stuff that says "Girl arrived Friday."
Oh my God, that's all it said. Yeah,
because you paid by how much you wrote in the telegram, and so that was what she sent to my dad. So. I mean, even in 1969, my mom was still. Yeah. That's how you got the information out to the ship in the middle of the sea.
That just made me think of, you have a collect call from, had a baby, it's a girl.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's just what, had a baby, it's a boy.
Hang up. Yeah, because you didn't want to like have that collect call fee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so. I'm with you. I think we're just fascinated with how things used to be, and kind of like I said, with the telegram kind of being like the original, not the original, but kind of like a text message, like a manual text message. And I think people are just really interested in that, and like just all of it in general, and like the idea that, and I always kind of make a joke about this, is like, you know, they didn't have TVs, they didn't have modern technology, so they had to find a way to entertain themselves. And that's why I always joke that every time they got ready in the morning, or they got ready to go out, or even getting ready for bed, it was an event. Like it was you had to have your own maid to dress you and to do your hair, because it was this drawn out process of just going to bed. And it was because you had nothing else to do, and it was just like, okay, well, I might as well take 2 hours to get ready for bed.
Let me have her take off my clothes.
And you had all these layers. Exactly. You had all these layers, and it just, I've kind of grown out of a disliking for period. Maybe because I'm older, maybe because I have a bigger, more appreciation for things. But I have grown into liking period dramas, period pieces in general. One of my favorites is A Million Ways to Die in the West, because that was one of a really realistic take of kind of taking someone that people talk a lot about today about, oh, this is the worst time to be alive because of this, this, and this. Well, what if you went back to the Old West, and Seth MacFarlane's character is like, this is the worst time to be alive because you can just walk outside of your house and just die. Like you can, you know, it was just so, the Wild West was just so crazy back then. It's just really funny to like kind of have like a that kind of perspective on it. Okay, so like you said in the series information, every season maybe doesn't open with, but it kind of revolves around a big world event. The Titanic obviously was a huge tragedy. It was the one of the biggest, most famous, I hate saying famous, but like one of the most famous disasters in world history. Oh, yeah. And, you know, they've made a movie about it. They've made movies about it. There's, you know, they have museums, they have,
New Orleans right now,
this, that, and the other. And, you know, there have been so many, in both of our lifetimes, there have been so many like world events that have happened. Do you have like is there a world event, something that happened in your lifetime that you have like the clearest memory of, or that you that had like a really big impact on you?
Well, I mean, we've lived through a bunch. I mean, and some are like just because they were world events, and some were good. I mean, some were bad. Like I just mentioned, Princess Diana's wedding. I mean, that was just news. Yeah. And it came out of nowhere. Like, I just remember all of a sudden, like, Lady Diana was on, like, the cover of People and Time and all of the newspapers. And everyone got up for her wedding. I mean, I think it happened in 1981, so I was maybe around 12 at the time.
Yeah.
And so I remember getting up and, getting ready to watch the wedding. And I think even my mom got up. I'm sure she probably thought I was crazy to wake up on that day and, watch the wedding. But I just remember it, and it just being like, oh my gosh, like, this is the most beautiful wedding. Like, and, it was probably silly and pomp and circumstance, but you were just like, felt like you were watching history because, Prince Charles was the next king of England. I mean, who knew that, Elizabeth would live like 40 more plus years or so.
Crazy.
But now Charles is king. And then that being said, I also remember when Princess Diana died.
Yeah.
I was in law school at that time, and we had just had a back to school party.
Yeah.
And I went to a friend's apartment, and I had heard on the car radio because, like, we didn't really technically have, like, I didn't have internet at that time yet, or I might have, but I was at the party, and I just remember, like, all the news stations were like, Princess Diana is gone. We just can't believe it.
Yeah.
She is gone. Like, it was just like, you were just really in shock. You were like, no, that can't be true.
Yeah.
Like, it's Princess Diana.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? And I just remember going to my friend Kevin's apartment, and it was like the apartment complex where like all the law students lived, and everyone was just like milling about. Like, just, we were in shock. And not that we have anything to do with Princess Diana, but it was just like, you just felt like this friend you knew had died. So that was two key, like, bookends of a person that I remember happening.
Yeah, I was in St. Louis for my cousin Christy's first wedding.
Yeah.
When Princess Diana died. I just remember, like, we were in the hotel. I just remember turning on the TV, and that was just like, it was showing like the overhead view of the car crash. And it didn't have an effect on me because I was like 12, I think. So I was just kind of like watching it, but I just remember like my mom and my sister just like being very, not like devastated, but they were just like upset by it just because it was so sudden and so tragic and so easily preventable. And I think that's like what made people so angry about it.
And then the other three that I'll say, I mean, there are probably so many more.
Yeah.
That I remember like hearing about, and obviously seeing. First off was the Challenger, which I was in high school. And again, I think that was like, all the teachers wheeled the TV on the carts into your rooms, and you were watching it, and all of a sudden you were like, okay, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, what was that? Like, that didn't really happen. Then the Oklahoma City bombing.
Right.
I was teaching by that point, and I had taken my students to Mexico, and we were flying back to Dallas. And Dallas, I don't know why, I guess because it was like the next closest major city, was like on high alert, and there were like bomb sniffing dogs everywhere, and we were driving back to Monroe from Dallas. So we flew into like DFW, and we were driving back, and all I remember was that was all that was on the radio, and people were like, God, we wish we had brought cassette tapes or something to listen to, because I mean, even your music radio stations were talking about it, because living in North Louisiana, I mean, that was just huge news. And then obviously 9/11, I was working for the company I work for now. I was teaching at Gonzaga Law School, and being 3 hours back from Eastern time, I was on Pacific time. I turned on the TV, and it was on NBC, and I saw, at the moment it was happening, was the first tower collapsing.
Yeah.
And I really, really, truly thought it was a movie. Like, I didn't know what I was watching. And I remember calling my sister. I had a flip phone. And all my sister yelled when I called. She's like, I've been trying to call you. We're being attacked. We're being attacked. And she was freaking out because Seattle was thought to be one of the big targets because of Microsoft and because of Boeing. And everything was shut down. I didn't know how I was going to get home. I ended up keeping my rental car and drove through the Cascade Mountains back to Seattle.
Yeah.
And again, another time where it was the radio was just like that was on every station. Yep. There was no music. The only music that ever kept coming on, I swear, was Enrique Iglesias' Hero.
Nice.
I was like, can we be any more depressing?
Right.
I was just like, please stop that. I was like, finally, I think I turned the radio off after a couple hours or something. But those are probably the biggest ones. I mean, there are probably so many more, obviously, but those are the ones where I can remember like where I was, what I thought, and just the people around me.
Yeah, looks like we got some thunder.
Yeah, thunder. So,
thunder, buddy.
What about you? What are some of your events?
Well, when 9/11 happened, I was in 11th grade, and I was at school, and I was getting my class ring fitted in the cafeteria. Like, it was so weird because it was like class started, and then they were calling people to the cafeteria, and so we left the classroom, and it was like the world was normal and everything was fine. I was gone for maybe like half an hour, and then I came back to class. No one was talking. The radio was, our teacher had turned, he had like a little battery operated like little radio, little portable radio, and he had that on, and I was like, what's going on? And someone was like, someone attacked the Twin Towers. And it was the way that they worded it that I didn't know what they meant. I remember being like confused. I was like, what do you mean someone like bombed it, or someone like came in with the rifle and just started shooting people? Like I didn't understand what they meant. And then when I think I went to my next class, and they had the little TV cart, and they were showing the news footage, and that's the memory of them just showing the damage and like the towers kind of post after getting hit. And then I remember being in class and like live on TV watching the second plane hit the tower. Like I remember, like I have such a clear memory of like, maybe it didn't happen like right then and there, but just watching the footage, they're like, a second tower has been attacked, and we were just like, what is going on? We were just like, and even back in, of course, you just said, it was interesting that you said like everyone thought that Seattle was going to be a target because of this and that, and everyone thought Baton Rouge was going to be a target because of Exxon. So it was just like because of the power plant. And I wonder if like every major city thought that they were going to be, because every major city kind of has their own thing that they contribute to our economy and to our. Damn, thunder's really clapping.
Well, I know. I remember they were saying like, oh my God, the Space Needle. And I'm, not that I want to diminish the workers at the Space Needle, but there were people that worked down in like the gift shop and the like lobby area, and then the people in the restaurant. I mean, there may be total at any given time, like 50 to 75 people at the Space Needle. I mean, it would have been an iconic building to destroy, but if you were talking about killing lives, that wouldn't have been the building I would have gone after. I mean, there are much bigger buildings in Seattle, but for us, it was Boeing, like the industry of the, aviation, and then obviously Microsoft.
Right.
I mean, like to have destroyed all the computer, like whatever, would have been massive. So,
and one that kind of I always kind of think about, because I just remember I don't know if it's considered a world event, but it was definitely something that consumed our lives in America. I was in Houston. It was when my Uncle Don and Aunt Tricia lived in Kingwood. I think that's the name of the town outside of Houston.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was probably like third or fourth grade. And I remember we were there visiting, and I had kind of met they lived in like an apartment complex, I think. And like I had kind of met some of the local kids that lived there, and I like hung out with them. And I remember coming back home, and everyone's just kind of watching TV. It was the OJ Bronco chase.
Oh.
And it was like,
that was a world
everything
event.
Stopped, and it was just like everyone was watching this and once again, I'm very young, and I'm just kind of like, what's going on? I remember like maybe my mom had kind of explained it to me, and I was like, oh, okay. And I had no investment in this like emotionally, but I just sat there and watched, because I'm just like, well, if he's innocent, then why is he running from the cop? It's just like a child's mind. I was just like, I didn't understand everything that had happened. And I just remember like everyone talking about it. I remember that trial was just what everyone talked about for the next however long that trial went on for. And that's always like my memory of anytime we kind of talk about Houston or anytime we kind of talk about driving there or staying there, I always remember the Bronco chase. I always just remember that's what, when I visited Houston, that's what happened.
Well, that's so funny because my mom, I think, was visiting friends in Puerto Rico when the Bronco chase happened. I happened to be working the Miss Louisiana pageant when Tiffany won that year in the contestants' dorm on campus. Like, she always helped me get like this week-long job that would pay me. And because of the pageant, and so this is just crazy how times have changed, was the contestants weren't allowed to like watch the news or like watch TV or anything. And so we didn't really have TV access while we were living in the dorm. And I remember calling my mom, because she had gotten home like that Saturday or Sunday. And I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, Tiffany won Miss Louisiana. And she's like, oh my God, have you been watching the stuff about OJ? And I'm like, what? And
what? Yeah.
And so she had told me about everything. And finally, I'm like getting newspapers and finally watching the news and stuff and seeing it. And I mean, at the time, so for you, maybe it wasn't a big deal, but OJ had been famous. I mean, he was a Buffalo Bills. He was like one of the best running backs, Hall of Fame, Hertz commercials, like running through the airport. So he was like Naked Gun movies. I think the movie Earthquake, maybe Towering Inferno. Yeah, one of those. And so he was famous. So for this to have happened, it was, I would say, pretty worldwide. And the trial was even crazier because my mom legit watched that every single day.
Yeah.
Every day. She could have probably have been a criminal attorney after this, defense or prosecution.
Yeah.
So like,
that's funny.
You know, she just was riveted by it because it was just someone you knew. And again, someone you felt like you had this connection or friendship with because he was such a sports icon and, you know, entertainment icon. And, you know, Nicole Simpson was beautiful. And this was just a crazy thing that happened to a bunch of rich people, and you were just like, wow, like they have problems too, apparently. So it was just kind of that was a good one.
I mean, it's one that is I will never forget. Okay, so we talked a little bit about in Downton that they have the upstairs and the downstairs. They have their own storylines. Sometimes they intertwine with each other, but for the most part, they're pretty separate. Are you more interested in the upstairs or the downstairs?
I think in this show, like, I love the beauty of the upstairs. Like, you know, their clothes and the house and just
the spectacle of it
all. The spectacle of that. But I love the downstairs stories. I love them. I just love Daisy. I love Anna and Bates and Mr. Carson. And even though Barrow pisses me off a lot.
You grow to love him.
I grow to love him at the end. But I love their dynamic because, like, you know, you were even mentioning as we were talking about it was, like, even within their downstairs life, they have their own hierarchy.
Right.
And
you don't mess with it.
And you don't mess with it.
Yeah.
You just, and outliers, you know, interlopers coming in to change that did not go over well. You know, we saw that in the pilot. So I do love the dynamic of the downstairs because, I mean, I have mentioned it before. I did not come from a wealthy family. My mom did not work. My dad was a cook. So, you know, we did not have a lot of money, which is why I think I love the grandeur of the upstairs, but I don't relate to their problems because I'm sitting here going like, shut the hell up. Like,
especially Mary.
Yeah. I'm like, you do not have problems.
Right.
Like, you know, like the downstairs, they have problems.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel the exact same. Like, I love the dynamic between the family upstairs. Like, I love Maggie Smith and her kind of her commentary on everything and her kind of butting in, and Speaking of kind of the mixing of the upstairs and the downstairs, one of my favorite bits from Downton Abbey, one of my favorite bits from like any TV show is when Robert's wearing the wrong tux, or he's wearing the wrong coat or something like that.
He's supposed to be white tie, but he's not.
And he's, Violet, his own mother keeps mistaking him for a servant. And it's just like, it just shows that how little she pays attention to the servants by like looking them in the face and paying attention to who they are. It's by what they wear. And that's just like one of my favorite bits. And I love Maggie Smith.
That was like the best.
That was like, I just remember watching that, and she just kept doing it, and it just never it was never not funny.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm always way more invested in the downstairs just because I feel like they intentionally did that. I feel like they intentionally, honestly made the downstairs more interesting, made them more three-dimensional, made them more sympathetic, because they are considered to be just normal people, and they have normal everyday problems that I think the majority of the population can relate to.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I love the relationship between Bates and Anna. I love the relationship between Carson and Mrs. Hughes. I love Mrs. Hughes. I love Carson. They're like probably my two favorite characters. Mrs. Patmore rules. She's like so funny. Her delivery, Daisy. It's like burned into my brain. And what I love the most has nothing to do with the show itself, but I love like seeing the actors that play the servants, seeing them in real life how insanely different they look. Like Phyllis Logan, I mean, like seeing pictures of her like at premieres and like in other stuff, if it weren't for the voice, she looks completely different. And even with Mrs. Patmore, like Mrs. Patmore is like a really pretty lady. And like, but the way they kind of have her, no makeup, with like the little wig and the hat and the cook outfit on, it's just like you can't tell, because they weren't dressing to impress. They were dressing for work, and it's just really interesting. I love the downstairs, but the upstairs had a lot of interesting storylines. Kind of the development of the characters, I like how they did it, but obviously I just think you and I both relate to the downstairs stuff way more.
Oh yeah.
I have another question here, but we already talked about what we thought of the pilot. I don't know why I always include that question, just in case we forget. That's the whole point of our podcast. I don't even know why I write it down as a question. All right, you ready to get into this pilot summary?
Let's do it before it starts raining.
I know it's really starting to thunder. All right, so yeah, this one isn't long. Just because it's one of those where a lot happens, but I could either make this a page and a half or 6 pages long. Right. There really wasn't any in between. Downton Abbey pilot summary. As Daisy, the kitchen maid, opens up the house, a telegram is delivered. It is April 16th, 1912, and the Titanic has gone down, taking with it Lord Grantham's heir, James Crawley, and his son Patrick. So who is the new heir? Not just to the earldom, but to Downton Abbey itself, which is entailed to the title. Violet, the Dowager Countess, assumes Robert, the present Earl, will break the entail and make an heiress of his eldest daughter Mary, but Robert is not so sure. To make matters worse, his wife Cora has her own money tied up in the estate, and there is no way to extract it without crippling Downton. Even if Robert could break the entail or take Cora's money out of it, would he want to? Downstairs, a new valet, John Bates, arrives. Bates was Robert's Batman during the Boer War. Even rich people in war had their own servants. That's just what's so crazy about all this. Bates was Robert's Batman during the Boer War, and Robert welcomes him. However, he looks as shocked as the rest of the servants when he sees Bates's limp. Cora's maid O'Brien and first footman Thomas, who wanted Bates' job, deliberately tried to sabotage his first days at work, which was pissing my boo off when they were mean to Bates.
I did not like that at all.
Mary was supposed to marry the heir, the late Patrick Crawley, but his death has freed her to move on. She believes her own prospects have changed for the better, and now she angles to catch the young Duke of, I will say, Crowborough. Her sister Edith was in love with Patrick and seethes with resentment towards Mary. The Duke arrives at Downton, presumably to present his condolences, but after dinner he requests an interview with Robert, likely to ask for Mary's hand. But when he learns that Robert is not intending to challenge the intel, he withdraws his offer without ever in fact making it. It was Thomas who brought the Duke to Downton, luring him with the prospect of the Grantham money. He and Thomas shared a summer romance, and Thomas intends to use this further to his own career, blackmailing the Duke with his own letters if he has. Blackmailing the Duke with his own letters if he has to. However, the Duke is one step ahead of Thomas, who can only watch as the incriminating pages go up in flames. So a little earlier in the episode, the Duke is kind of using Mary as like, let's have a fun little, let's explore the house. And he's like, let's go look downstairs. And he was just like, oh, where's the footman's bedroom? And you're like, okay, this dude is sus. Like, this dude is up to no good.
Oh, yeah.
He sneaks into Thomas's room. You're not really sure why, but then you realize he was looking for the letters. I'm assuming because the Duke knew that, the Duke knew that he was going to, that Barrow was probably going to blackmail him. And so he grabbed the letters before there was a chance, and that was the letters that he threw into the fire. So Barrow is secretly closeted homosexual, gay, but he obviously the era, he's not gonna be out. But yeah, so him and the Duke kind of had this like secret relationship, romance, whatever you want to call it. Meanwhile, Robert informs Bates that his disability is interfering with his work and he will have to go. Bates seems to take the news well, but the head housemaid, Anna, hears him crying in his room. Bates leaves the house with Crowborough the next morning, but Robert finds himself unable to let Bates go, and to the amazement of Cora and the servants, he asks Bates to stay. Robert has discovered the identity of his new heir, a distant cousin named Matthew who lives in the countryside with his mother Isabel, and intends to write to the young man and invite him to Downton. I keep wanting to say Downton. Matthew receives a letter while having breakfast with his mother. Matthew tells her it's from Robert, and when she asks what the letter says, Matthew replies, he wants to change our lives. End of episode. So yeah, that's the summarize as I can make it. So much more happens, obviously. There's so much more dynamics. Poor Daisy's getting tossed around, and nothing she does is right, and it's very funny. And then something that I noticed the last time we watched the pilot, the most recent time we watched the pilot for this episode, was that whenever you're sitting down, you just have your letter opener right next to you at the ready, because it was just really funny. He was like, okay, here's the mail, and he just like Matthew just takes his letter opener that's just right next to him.
Yeah,
just very very fancy.
Very fancy.
All right, so of course we love the show. Love the movies. It's on Prime. It's on Peacock. Watch it. I mean, I don't think it's a difficult watch. I mean, I know it has not a lot of episodes, but just the way British television works. Yeah, 52 episodes. That's not bad at all.
No.
And that includes all the Christmas specials, which are kind of serve as like season finales. All right, so you think that wraps up this episode?
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at WeJudgePilotPod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
All right, so I don't know if there's a castle or like a really big house, but I have like a castle, a big house, a ship, the newspaper, ice for the iceberg that sank the Titanic.
Okay.
A maid, cash, the piece of paper to represent the telegram, the bride and the groom because Mary was supposed to be getting married, a cane for Bates, the letters, the fire, crying emoji, a horse, the breakfast emoji, and the UK flag and the US flag for Cora.
Right.
All right. Well, we are going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.